What up, TCK Potters? Welcome back to the program. I'm your host, Sky Guasco. This is another episode of the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Football Podcast, episode 471. I'm joined by my man, Bobby Lamarco. We are breaking down the recaps for week 5, getting into week 6. We finally have bye weeks. We have 4 teams on bye this week. The Jets, the 49ers, the Falcons, and the Saints are not going to be playing this week, so goes without saying. But if you're new to fantasy football, you will need to find alternative options for those players. And Bob and I are here to give you a couple of names that produced pretty well over the weekend, maybe some guys that dropped, and what to look forward to in week 6. If you have not yet done your waivers, feel free to dial it back one episode to 470. I broke down all my top waiver ads. I also gave a player to trade for and a player to trade away, and also added a couple of extra players that might be on your league's IR lists. So guys like Jerry Jeudy, maybe Jeff Wilson, Gronkowski, Jarvis Landry. Some of these guys may have been dropped, especially with bye weeks coming up. If they were dropped, make sure you go search their name and bring them up. Search their name, not the projections, because they won't come up if they're still out, but search their name. And if you can find a guy like that, make sure to put them on your roster. Once again, week 5 recap, week 6, looking what to do here. Bobo, good to hear from you, brother. How was the weekend? Sorry, I was out on Sunday. Had a wonderful weekend with the missus. Celebrated the birthday out on the coast. It was good to get away for a little bit. We've been going nonstop since basically April here on this show. We have a no days off mentality around here, but felt good to get one with the family, man. So how are you doing? How was the weekend?
It was good, man. Did our player trends episode Saturday. It was a key injury. Thought that was a really good show. Went way too deep. I was like, I lost myself in stats. So I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't do that every week. But it was fun. And then Sunday Live was great. We had donated $15 to Good Sports, which is great. We rounded up for we got over $100 from our donations this weekend. So we donated, of course, our 10% to the Good Sports Foundation. So make sure you're joining us every Sunday live for our Start Sit show from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern. 10% of all your donations that go to I'm going to just say the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Focus podcast. That's right. I blended it both. Goes to Good Sports. This is our youth charity organization that's now part of our sponsor of our Sunday Live Start Sit show. And we're really excited to donate to them and be a part of their cause. 27,000 kits and 540,000 kids have been served and helped to play youth sports. So great cause. It was a great opportunity. And I think the early Jets-Falcons game hurt us a little bit. You know, I think people are watching football. I don't blame you. You got to watch football. So if it's on at 9 a.m. or 6 a.m. or whatever it was for us, you got to get up and just watch football. I get it. We understand. But come out this weekend. We'd love to have you.
Love that. Yep, we got London games kicking off here, but we are going to be with you right after kickoff, really, on Sunday. They start at 6 West Coast time. We are on 7 a.m. West Coast time for the Sunday Start Sit show. All right, Bob, we got a lot of teams to get through. This is the last week here until the very end where we have all slates to get through. So 15 games to recap. We'll go through it as quickly as we can. We already have some people piling in on the comments. We will get to as many people as possible, but we will save that for a break or at the end. So if you do have questions, feel free to jump in the comment section. But please know that we are going to roll through this episode as is. Stick around until the end, and we will get to your questions. If we miss you or you jump off, then feel free to DM us. You can hit Bob at Bobby Lamarco on Twitter, and you can hit me at Sky Guasco on Twitter, and we'll get to as many of your questions as possible. All right, Bob, are you ready to go here, man? We got a lot of recaps to get into. We got to recap the week 5 action, get into the week 6 action. And before we go into it, I want to talk about this now and hopefully never again. We didn't prepare for this, obviously, because we get breaking news all the time and things come up that we're not ready for. And certainly nobody was ready for the Jon Gruden issue. I mentioned it on last episode and I didn't dive too deep into it because more information is still coming out. I generally don't bring up these type of situations until we know all of the facts. So I won't go too deep into this. But if anybody's tuning in and somehow you missed the games over the weekend or you didn't get the information during Monday Night Football, Jon Gruden was essentially going to be relieved of his duties as the Raiders head coach. So he decided to resign instead to save some of his face and namesake. Long story short, some emails came out, misogynistic, homophobic, racist, you name it. John Gruden's been saying it over the last 10, 15 years. ESPN dropped the report. Turns out that John Gruden was sending these emails between 2011 and 18 when he was working for ESPN in the Monday night booth. Not a good look for anybody. Nonetheless, John Gruden out as the Raiders head coach. Bobby, I don't want to get too much into the semantics of what he said, what he didn't say. If you're interested as a listener and you haven't heard yet, please do your own research. I'm going to save that till everything comes out. I do, however, want to get your quick thoughts. We get a special teamers head coach coming in to replace Gruden here. What are your quick thoughts on the Raiders overall moving forward for fantasy? They started off red hot. Derek Carr was in the quick early MVP race discussion, but injuries and lackluster play the last couple of weeks, and now this with John Gruden. Your quick thoughts on the Raiders overall for fantasy moving forward?
Well, he got what he deserved. He should have been fired. I think it was a swift move by the Raiders organization. I think it should have been done, and there's no question about that. For fantasy purposes moving forward, listen, Derek Carr has been in this system for years now. So at some point, he knows what he's doing out there. I'm not stressing too much about John Gruden from a play calling perspective. Greg Olsen is not a good play caller. He was a Jags OC for a while. It was not great. I don't know if it was a John Gruden leading that way, but I think Derek Carr knows this offense so well from being in this offense since 2018 that he's going to be able to run it like he could no matter what. I don't think it's going to be that big of a problem from that standpoint. However, this is a big distraction. So it could be a problem in that sense, a mental thing, just clouding their judgment, not sure what they want to do. Is the season lost? Starts creep because now they're coming off. They started off hot. Now they lost a couple games. Now does that creep in? Defensively, the Raiders are actually playing pretty well. I mean, they actually have done enough under Gus Bradley with Casey Hayward in the back end, and that pass rush has been all right. So the Raiders are going to just be another great 9-8, 8-9 team, competitive football team. But I just think that the playoff hopes probably go out the window, not only because of the division, but because of the distractions of the John Gruden situation.
I totally agree. I think you said all that very well, and I also agree he got what he deserved. And it's unfortunate that we continue to have this stuff pop up in sports and in the media. And obviously, none of these celebrities or people who we deem famous are any different than you and I. They just happen to have the namesake, right? And when things like this go down, it's really unfortunate. And as a fantasy podcast, we have an obligation to dish out this information. But over the years, covering Tyreek Hill stuff, Joe Mixon stuff, Kareem Hunt stuff. The list goes on, unfortunately, and we have to bring it to you, but worst part of our job for sure. So good riddance to John Gruden. I assume he's going to be out of the NFL. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers took it a step further, took him out of the Ring of Honor for their Super Bowl win in 2002. So they're doing their part as well, but very unfortunate. And for any of you out there on Twitter who are kind of putting out the, who cares? Everybody says this kind of stuff. It was 10 years ago, big deal, blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, you may be part of the problem as well. All right, Bobby, let's move on here. Let's go to Monday Night Football. Absolutely, other than the John Gruden news that broke, early and then midway through the game there, absolutely phenomenal ending to the game. If you somehow turned it off at halftime because it was a snooze fest, you missed a hell of a second half there. Ravens get the win, and the entire game, my lady is a big Ravens fan. So the whole game, she was like folding clothes, like, I can't watch, because the Colts were just running them. They were down 23-3 and ended up winning the game, 31-25. Lamar Jackson, most passing yards, 442 in a game in Baltimore history. I was shocked. I thought Joe Flacco would have more than that in a single game, but Lamar Jackson comes out hot, 442 and 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, 62 yards on the ground. Mark Andrews' career day, 11 catches, 147 yards, and 2 touchdowns on 13 targets, 2 2-point conversions as well. Hollywood Brown, 9 for 125 and 2 on 10 targets. He stays absolutely hot, top 5 wide receiver. Justin Tucker, just 3 fantasy points there. On the other side, the Colts, 400 yards and 2 touchdowns from Carson Wentz, played very well in this game. Jonathan Taylor, 15 carries, 53 yards, a touchdown. 3 catches, 116 yards, and another touchdown, 76-yard touchdown, boosted a lot of that. Marlon Mack, Bobby's been repping him for the last couple of weeks. I think they're showcasing him, maybe looking to move him at the trade deadline. 5 carries, 47 yards. He does look to have that burst. Bobo, takeaways from Monday night game, and then what are we looking forward to with these two teams moving into week 6?
Well, from the Colts standpoint, I think Carson Wentz, he looked good. I mean, if you're a Colts fan, you liked what you saw out of Carson Wentz. He's, hitting Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman takes the next step. Paris Campbell looked healthy for the first time all year, got a boatload of targets. Mo Alley Cox is just like a giant tree out there, just catching passes and dropping acorns or whatever the trees do these days. But yeah, basically it was encouraging. Plus the ground game just looked, it was one of the games I was trying to fade adjusted line yards metric, but Jonathan Taylor looked awesome. So that's encouraging as well. And this week they get the Texans. And the Texans, I think, are a better team than we thought, but they're still not great. So I think from a Colts standpoint, you're really excited about the skill position players on offense, plus the Marlon Mack news. The Chiefs, for example, are inquiring about Marlon Mack. It could be big news. If Marlon Mack goes, Marlon Mack's worth is speculative value. This guy in 12 games with Andrew Luck in 2018 had nearly 1,000 yards rushing. And then with Jacoby Beef Brissett running the show in 2019, he did have just about 1,000 yards. So I think he's a good runner. If he goes to the Chiefs with CEH out, I think he's worth a speculative ad to see if the Chiefs actually follow through. But Marlon Mack leaving is going to open the door again for Nyheim Hines and Taylor to get all that work and not share it. On the other side for the Ravens, I think it's encouraging to see Lamar Jackson as a passer lead them back and dominate. And that's the other thing is Sammy Watkins went down with an injury. Could be good news for the sense of Rashad Bateman coming back and immediately getting some targets. He might have had to work for some work behind Watkins and Brown and Andrews. But if Watkins is going to miss extended time, you know how Watkins is with injuries too. Once he gets hurt, it just feels like he's just out. So I think from that perspective, I think that Bateman coming back is someone that if he's on IR, pick him up, stash him, see how it works behind Brown and Andrews. But Marquise Brown has been awesome. He's the poster child for post-type sleeper. And then Mark Andrews, I talked about this on Saturday. He's finally getting the proper routes, which is leading to his increased usage. So I think that's exciting. The running back situation is a mess. Latavius Murray and Williams is now back in the mix. And then Freeman was the preferred passing down back. And then none of them look good. It just doesn't look right, which is so interesting because this team has thrived off running the ball for years. And instead it's Lamar Jackson through the air, which has just boosted Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews.
And their defense isn't as dominant as it has been for the last 20-plus years. Right now, they're good. They're just not dominant. So it was good to see Lamar Jackson shed that monkey off his back, throw for 400-plus yards, and bring his team back through the air. Very impressive there. All right, let's move on to Sunday night football. We'll dial it back one more. Big rain delay in this one between the Bills and the Chiefs. The Bills get the win here, 38-20. Smackdown on the Chiefs, frankly. Saw this one coming, called it out with Chris Benavides when we did our previews on this one. We both called the Bills outright, and sure enough, that was the case here, almost doubling up the Chiefs, which is very interesting. 315 yards and 3 touchdowns for Josh Allen. Dawson Knox, 3 catches, 117 and a touchdown, 3 touchdowns in his last couple of games. Patrick Mahomes, 2 touchdowns. He's Patrick Mahomes, but is he still Patrick Mahomes? CEH goes on IR in this game. Stephon Diggs, Emmanuel Sanders is the one catching the touchdowns here. Bills dominated on defense as well. Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill both held in check. How do we feel about the Chiefs and Bills?
Well, from the Chiefs side, it's just interesting that bad Patrick Mahomes is still really good. So I think from that perspective, I understand that he's still like the QB1 in fantasy. So, really, I get it. But at the same time, I think Andy Reid, just wait till the bye comes, guys. Once Andy Reid gets his bye, he'll get his mojo back, and they'll figure out exactly how defenses are slowing them down. So if anything, these guys are all buy lows. I'm not stressing about them at all. But the interesting is behind Kelce and behind Tyreek Hill, no one's emerged. No one's been consistent. Josh Gordon, listen, he had 4 routes last week. So that's not a lot, but he got on the field right away. I still think he's a speculative ad. I think he's just someone you just put there. Mecole Hardman and Demarcus Robinson and Byron Pringle have not done a thing to earn that number 2 wide receiver spot. So I think Josh Gordon just on the bench, deeper stash, whatever. Running back wise, CEH going down is big news. The Marlon Mack news about him coming over is huge. But Daryl Williams is the speculative ad. He's the guy you want. He's the one that got all the looks. But also Daryl Williams was getting more work the week prior anyway. I talked about this in our player trends show on Saturday. He got double-digit carries the week before. So something worth noting that Daryl Williams was already earning more work, and now with the CEH injury, I think you got to go out and get him if he's on free agency. On the Bills side, the thing I find is Stephon Diggs, man. This is really concerning because he was third on the team in routes. So it was Emmanuel Sanders, Dawson Knox, then it was Diggs. Even worse than Diggs is Beasley. He fell behind Zach Moss in routes last week. Beasley is not going to be able to be a consistent PPR asset if he's running less routes than the running back and tight end. That's something I thought was extremely interesting. Plus, this is for Dawson Knox. This is a different ball game. I've repped this for the last couple of weeks. It's all about his usage. I was like, wow, this is why I went from not thinking about Dawson Knox to, all right, I buy it. I get it. He's throwing it in my face. Like, usage-wise, this guy is out there constantly. He ran one less route than Emmanuel Sanders, and that's just leading him to be a solid player. Plus Moss, another step in the right direction. 24 routes to 8 for Singletary. I think that's why Moss is a buy for me for fantasy purposes.
Let's move on here to the Sunday slate. Bears-Raiders. Bears get the win, 20-9. Justin Fields throws his first touchdown pass. We have Khalil Herbert, my man, 18 carries, 75 yards. Raiders offense not looking good here. We just mentioned the John Gruden stuff. We don't need to dive into all that again. Let's talk about it from a fantasy standpoint here. Damien Williams also did pretty well sitting in. Darnell Mooney and Allen Robinson at this point, non-factors, unfortunately. They get the first road win in Vegas since 2007 for the Bears, but both of these offenses looking pretty inept right now.
Yeah, and Jesper Horsted, just to stick it to you, got the touchdown, folks. It wasn't Cole Kmet, it wasn't Allen Robinson, Darnell Mooney. A little Jesper Horsted gets you going on the touchdown. So that's just another stick in the craw. But also, I think the biggest takeaway from the Bear side is Khalil Herbert. 18 carries. That's legit. Definitely someone you should probably go pick up in deeper leagues. And even in, I would say, 12-team leagues, you could probably pick him up because it looks like him and Damien Williams, they're going to be focused on the ground game, and Bill Lazor knows what he's doing there. On the Raiders side, listen, that was a bad matchup for Derek Carr. Better days are going to be ahead for him, especially in a division where he has the Chiefs and the Chargers who are going to put up points. So I think he's going to see better days. But I think Henry Ruggs is someone I really like. He led the team in routes, tied with Darren Waller, 40% slot usage. So he has this really unique usage of himself. I like that for him. And he's actually producing. Like, his bad games now are like 3 for 50, 3 for 55. Like, last year it was like 1 for 10. Like, so it's seeing that development for him is good news for his fantasy value. And then Josh Jacobs. Listen, I know you're the anti-Josh Jacobs guy, but at the same time, for some reason, they paid Kenyon Drake, and I don't understand why.
Don't get me started.
19 routes for Josh Jacobs to 6 for Drake. So Jacobs is not even getting the pass game usage, which is good news for his fantasy value moving forward.
Yeah, well, without John Gruden, we'll see how they mix things up a little bit, but I think that's a big mistake among a few there in Vegas. Let's go out to London town. We had the early game, again, 6 a.m. for us on the West Coast here, the Jets and the Falcons. Falcons get the win, 27-20. Most receiving yards, 119 in a game by a rookie in London. Kyle Pitts finally breaks out here. 9 catches, 119 and a touchdown. Matt Ryan, 342 and 2. Patterson keeps it going for the Falcons. Man, this is just a great game to see the offense for the Falcons come back-to-back weeks, looking to get cooking here. They should get Calvin Ridley back, who was out in this one for a personal matter. They're on a bye. Both of these teams have a bye this coming week. We have bye weeks now. Again, Jets, Falcons, Saints, and Niners on a bye. So we don't have to have too much looking forward to next week, Bobby, but maybe just one quick takeaway here that we can save and pause for next episode.
For the Jets, it's that Jamison Crowder and Davis are the 1-2 easy. 7 and 6 targets, no one else over 3. And on the Falcons side, listen, no Russell Gage, no Calvin Ridley. It was a nice game for everybody, but Pitts, there's going to be more competition for targets, especially on the Pitts side. I know this is crazy to say, but I don't know, maybe you should sell Pitts a little high here, maybe package him, because I feel like it's just huge game with no Ridley, no Russell Gage against a Jets team that has been very susceptible to tight ends this season. I just think that. And then for Cordell Patterson, still only 14. He basically was used as a receiver in this game. 14 of his 24 routes were out wide. So they basically used him as a receiver, as their third receiver. That's going to change once they get Russell Gage and they also get back Calvin Ridley. So maybe this is the time to stir up some of that trade interest for these kind of guys.
I like that. Good call. Let's bring it back stateside here for the Packers and the Bengals, 25-22 in overtime. Packers get the win. Our boy, man, Lil McPherson thought he had a chance, hit the flagpole. Crosby missed 3 field goals in this one, Bob, and they still get the W there for the Packers. Devontae Adams has 11 catches, 206 yards, and a touchdown. Jamar Chase, 159 and a touchdown. He's the clear one. I love my boy T. Higgy, but the relationship there from LSU is the truth. We saw it from day one. It's happening. T. Higgins has been limited and out last couple of weeks. Jamar Chase is the number one there. I'm a little bit worried about your boy T. Boyd, but I'll let you get into that. Aaron Jones, over 100 yards as well. The first road win in Cincinnati for the Packers since 1998 with your boy Brett Favre.
All right, so the Packers side, listen, they're getting banged up. Kevin King is now hurt now, Jair Alexander on the outside, and we saw Jamar Chase totally take advantage of that. Maybe that gives some hope for Darnell Mooney and Allen Robinson next week because this team is really banged up in the secondary. Aaron Jones, he actually finished third on the team in routes, and he was second in targets. So interesting development. When MBS was out, it's really become Devontae Adams 1, 2, and 3, and then it's like Aaron Jones. So that's an interesting development, at least for his fantasy value. He hasn't had that blow-up game since week 2, but hey, if you're able to get Aaron Jones, maybe pair an RB2 and a wide receiver 2 to get Aaron Jones right now, I would. Absolutely. Bengals side, yeah, it's clearly Jamar Chase, but my thoughts on Tyler Boyd I made very clear last week. I'm actually concerned because his schedule gets really tough for slot receivers rest of the way. So I'm trying to be optimistic, but I think this week kind of made me realize that behind Chase, maybe the fact that there's going to be better games for game flow and they'll have more high volume games, but at the same time, I'm willing to package and sell Tyler Boyd if I can based on the rest of season schedule.
Yep, I agree, man. It's tough to let you guys go. I think the analysis preseason was correct, but Jamar Chase, man, we can't deny him blowing up there. So you got to read the tea leaves and make adjustments. Let's move on to the Lions and Vikings. Vikings get the W here, 1917, emotional press conference from Dan Campbell. And look, man, I feel for the guy. I know a lot of people make fun of him because it's football and people are dicks. But this dude's an NFL player. He's a coach for a long time. This is a young team. No expectations from this squad at all. They get Jared Goff, no defense, little weapons on offense. They have played and had a chance to win every single game that they've been in this year. They just haven't done it yet. I think Lions fans have something to look forward to long-term, but they get goated again last minute. Joseph gets a game-winning 54-yard field goal as time expires. Vikings get the W. Alexander Mattison stepping in for Dalvin Cook once again, 25 carries, 113 yards. Justin Jefferson, 7 for 124. Swift, 100 total yards and a touchdown again. Again, another great NFC North close game here. The Lions can't get it done. And look, man, it doesn't matter at this point who is the running back for the Vikings. That's going to be the focal point of the offense. Dalvin Cook dominating. When he's out, it's been Madison.
Yeah, and Quintez Cephas from the Lions side is now injured as well. This is tough because, listen, teams are taking away TJ Hawkinson. If I'm a Hawkinson owner, I'm concerned. He's not producing now because he's the focal point. 2 for 22 this week against a Vikings defense that got eat up by Max XX Williams just a couple weeks ago. That's concerning to me, especially because it's a good matchup. Amon-Ra St. Brown, though, is now looking like he's getting the routes now. They're trusting him more. He actually had more routes than Khalif Raymond this week, which we talked about a couple weeks ago. He had 7 for 65. It looks like they're starting to give him a little more juice. And we've talked about this preseason. No one targets the middle of the field more than Jared Goff. So this could be something in a PPR format. Maybe Amon-Ra St. Brown hit waivers. Maybe you could pick him up now because of the injury to Quintez Cephas. On the Vikings side, if you're the Dalvin Cook owner and you don't have Alexander Mattison, I think you have to pay up and go get him. So here's my thoughts, Guy. Let me ask you a quick question. You're the Dalvin Cook owner. You don't have Madison. Would you give up Mike Davis to get Madison?
Yes. I don't want Mike Davis anyway.
All right. Myles Gaskin.
Absolutely.
Javonte Williams.
Yes.
Let's see. Jamal Williams.
Yes, but Jamal's my guy. But I would do it for Madison.
Okay. I'm going to do one that's a little bit harder. Chase Edmonds.
No. If I have Cook and he's just not looking healthy, then maybe. But Chase Edmonds is still an RB2 in his own right.
Yeah, I just think that's important. Like, you guys might need to pay a little bit of a premium, but you might want you got to go get Madison right now. Absolutely.
I agree. I just think it's going to be too difficult to do because now he's an RB1 in his own right and he's a backup somewhere. It's like telling yourself like, okay, I'm going to go get Kareem Hunt because he's Nick Chubb's backup. Well, he's not. He's the number 5 running back in PPR right now, so he's not the backup.
But let's say one thing on here though. Hunt has standalone value. Madison doesn't. If Cook plays, Madison does not really get the work. So maybe you're right in the sense, wait a week, see if Cook comes back. If Madison only gets 5-6 carries and Cook comes out of that game healthy, that value drops and you can get a better trade target for that week. So that's a good idea.
Right, I agree. Let's move on here to the Broncos and the Steelers. Steelers get the win 27-19. Najee Harris, 4th Pittsburgh Steelers running back since 1970 to have 120 rushing yards and a touchdown in a game. He's the 4th rookie to do that for the Steelers. Chase Claypool and Sutton both go over 120 yards and a touchdown. First game this season with Big Ben throwing more than one touchdown. Juju Smith-Schuster dislocates his shoulder. He's going to have surgery. He's going to miss 4 months. He's probably going to miss the rest of the season because of that. We love Deontay Johnson. 15.5 PPR fantasy points per game when he plays. Double-digit targets in every single game that he has played. Chase Claypool obviously stepping up in that number 2. Najee Harris going to get that short area targets. Do you feel okay about the Steelers overall with Juju being out? And on the Broncos side, is it just the same conversation? You split touches in the backfield. Sutton's the number 1. We're just waiting for Judy.
Yeah, I think from the Steelers side, I think Najee Harris owners, listen, good for you. Touche. I mean, Juju missing time. Claypool missed a game. Deontay Johnson missed a game. And it just looks like that Big Ben's just dumping it down to him. 2nd in the league in receptions for running backs, 3rd in targets. I mean, if that's fantastic.
Third in PPR fantasy scoring for running backs.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it is what it is. If he was going to get that kind of volume in the pass game, then that's good for him. Good for him overall, but I'll accept my fate there. But Juju Smith-Schuster being out, one thing I thought was interesting, Chase Claypool saw 40% of his snaps in the slot this week versus 15 the weeks prior. That's a great development. I don't know what's going to happen between him and James Washington. Who's going to take over primary slot duties? If it's Claypool, big slot, I like that a lot for him. But it also could mean more 2 tight end sets. That could put Pat Freiermuth maybe in some like deep dark throw leagues if they throw more 2 tight end sets out there overall. And then for the Broncos side, listen, I think you're right. Sutton and Tim Patrick did very well. They actually had 9 and 10 targets apiece. The next player had 4. So it's them 2. And then everybody else until Judy gets back. Fant didn't really do much, but he played the Steelers. We talked about fading him. Gordon and Javonte Williams. I mean, it's a 50-50 split. And like I said on my Player Trends show, play them in good matchups, sit them in bad. Steelers were not a good matchup. You sit them. The week prior, bad matchup. You sit them because they're splitting work 50-50. And even Gordon, 22 routes, 13 for Williams. It's too much of a split, so play them when they have good matchups. That's my only advice.
Let's move on here to the Dolphins and the Buccaneers. Buccaneers, big win here, 45-17. Tom Brady, first time in his entire career, I thought this was interesting, 400 passing yards and 5 touchdown passes. Now, he's thrown for over 400 numerous times. He's thrown 4 or 5 touchdowns or more numerous times. First time, though, he had 500 passing yards and 5 touchdowns. And even though he's not with the Patriots in the AFC East anymore, still dominating the Dolphins. Poor Dolphins fans. Brady, 411 yards and 5 touchdowns. Brown and Evans each scored twice. Fournette is the number 1 in the backfield now. Myles Gaskin played well in this game, but it's a sell-high opportunity for me. Tua Tagovailoa looking to be reactivated from the IR this week. Let's keep an eye on those practice reports. But Jacoby Brissett got banged up with a hamstring issue. Should be going to Tua if he's ready to go here. Let's start with the Bucs. Is Ronald Jones droppable?
Yeah. Well, listen, for the Bucs side, yes, Ronald Jones, you don't need to have him anymore. Leonard Fournette's the guy. And listen, even from Fournette's perspective, in good game scripts, he's the passing down back. 28 routes to 5 for Gio, to 8 for Gio. That's a huge discrepancy. 5 targets to 2. Gio did find the end zone this week, but it's Leonard Fournette's the guy when it's neutral or they're in positive game scripts. It's only when they were down to the Rams that Gio became a factor. So I love Leonard Fournette moving forward. Brate, listen, the Gronk, it looks like they're playing the Eagles this week. No Gronk, but I am not buying Cameron Brate. He actually split work pretty even with O.J. Howard. 20 routes versus 42 for Evans. That's less than 50% of the versus dropbacks. Not feeling that too much. On the other side, listen, Myles Gaskin, 10 targets on 22 routes. That's insane. But remember, no Devontae Parker, no Will Fuller. Outside of Mike Gesicki, Preston Williams was making some plays. Jalen Waddle, hey, it is what it is. I think the Bucs defense is very susceptible to out wide and also pass catching running back. So maybe that's what factored into all this. But like you just said, sell high opportunity. And I'm a little disappointed in Wild's production. Thought he'd be a little bit better, especially because of no Parker and Fuller.
I did too. All right, we're going to take a break really quick and give a shout out to one of our newest sponsors. Bob and I are going to pop off just for a second. We're going to give a shout out to Carifactor. We'll be back in just a minute.
Hair loss. There are many options out there for treating it. However, most products treat the cause, such as DHT, and don't do much to support the growth of new and stronger hair. It's like removing harmful weeds from your lawn, but not doing much to fertilize the grass. At Carifactor, we saw this problem and focused our research on finding just the right combination of biosynthetic growth factors and innovative delivery system to promote fuller, stronger-looking hair. So whether you're a customer who suffers from various forms of alopecia or even stress-related hair loss, the Carifactor treatment is the perfect scalp-friendly solution that can help influence stronger and healthy hair throughout all stages of the hair life cycle. And now, exclusively for TCK listeners, use the promo code TCK at checkout to get 15% off all products at shop.mycarifactor.com. That's shop.mycarifactor.com. Carifactor, skincare for hair.
All right, moving on to the Saints and the Washington football team. 33-22 win here for the Saints. Alvin Kamara more involved. Like to see that, over 100 total yards, 2 touchdowns. Antonio Gibson, 2 touchdowns. Jameis Winston, 4 touchdowns. And Callaway, 2 touchdowns, one of them being a Hail Mary at the end of the first half here. Again, the Saints going on a bye, but what can we look forward to with the Washington football team?
Yeah, Curtis Samuel banged up again. That's really tough. Sam Cosmi, one of their offensive linemen, got hurt too. But listen, 20 carries for 60 yards for Antonio Gibson and 2 touchdowns. Touche, Antonio Gibson. I knew you weren't going to be good on the ground, but rushing for 2 touchdowns helps. So whatever, man. I can't, whatever. It is what it is. But Ricky Seals-Jones was my biggest takeaway. Second on the team in routes, 8 targets. He looks to be taking over that full-time Logan Thomas role. I think he's someone you could definitely pick up and stash if you need a tight end, especially if you're the Logan Thomas owner and you struggled this week for tight end help. On the Saints side, Deontay Harris gets hurt right away, and then Marcus Callaway becomes what we thought he might be preseason, 4 for 85 and 2. Harris was starting to look like the one, and then he goes down early, and now it's basically Marcus Callaway, but now there's a bye week, so probably nothing there. Taysom Hill, same thing. He got hurt in this game. Might have been opening more opportunities for Alvin Kamara, some other playmakers, because Taysom Hill plays that weird hybrid role. So we'll see where it comes out of the bye. But overall, I think the biggest takeaway is if Harris is out, Marcus Callaway could be a sleeper in week 7.
Getting a lot of questions about Michael Thomas. Bobby could be coming off of the IR here in the next couple of weeks. Are you trading for Michael Thomas, or are you not interested right now?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, let's move on here to the Eagles and the Panthers. Eagles get the win by a field goal, 21-18. Hurts, 2 touchdowns, rushing. Darnold, 3 interceptions. He's come down to earth after the first 3 games going absolutely fantastic. Last 2 games have been sobering. Chuba Hubbard, over 101 total yards. We could get Christian McCaffrey back next week. Devonta Smith leads the passing game for the Eagles. The Eagles defense, 3 interceptions in a game for the first time since 2019. So maybe they're turning it around a little bit with Darius Slay and everybody else here. So the Panthers started red hot this season, 3-0, dropped the last couple of games here. Eagles, you never know what team you're going to get, but this is a big statement win for the Eagles.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is the Miles Sanders, Kenny Gainwell situation. It's really brought down Miles Sanders. Gainwell has played decently well, but the touches are still there for Sanders. But the line's destroyed. They lost Lane Johnson. They lost 2 of their offensive guards. It's not looking great for them at all offensively. Jalen Hurts just is a fantasy garbage time dynamo, my friend. I mean, it looks so bad for it. It's like you're 3 quarters in, you're like, I should have taken Tom Brady in the round earlier. And then sure enough, he gets like 20 points in the 4th quarter. So always great. Stick with Jalen Hurts. Fantastic. Devonta Smith and them, they look good. But I think for the most part, Dallas Goedert's on the COVID list. Zach Ertz is a premier waiver wire pickup this week, especially going up against the Tampa Bay Bucks, who are very susceptible to tight ends this season. Panthers side, I think it really just all starts with CMC. When he comes back, it just opens up the dynamic of that offense because now Robbie Anderson's your third option. You don't have to rely on Ian Thomas trotting himself out there, and Tommy Tremble makes me tremble thinking about throwing the ball to him so much. But the thing is, like, that's going to really open things up for Sam Darnold and also open things up for DJ Moore. But I think one back down game is not a problem. So keep riding DJ. He should be fine.
All right, let's move on to the Titans and the Jaguars. Titans get the win here, 37-19. Big win for the Titans. Jacksonville has lost 20 straight games, third longest streak in NFL history. And Urban Meyer is also in the news for other things. So not looking good for Jacksonville. Unfortunately, Trevor Lawrence will have his day, but probably not this season. James Robinson, however, 18 carries, 149 yards, and a touchdown. Shocking why they even took Travis Etienne. I know he's a great player, but this James Robinson kid's legit. They struck gold here. We'll see what happens with Etienne when he gets healthy next year. Derrick Henry, 130 and 3 touchdowns. Yardage, it's crazy to say not as high as you thought with 130 yards, but the 3 touchdowns was massive. And then pretty quiet day passing for each of the squads. Tennessee's defense steps up there as well. So with A.J. Brown getting healthy, Julio Jones still on the mend, how do we feel about these squads?
You know, a question came up. I'm just going to bring it up now because they asked about Jamal Agnew. And listen, I don't know what the deal is, but for some reason, Jamal Agnew and Tavon Austin were the preferred targets than Marvin Jones and Laviska Shenault. Don't know why. This is why I don't like this. This is the definition of love-hate fantasy football because Marvin Jones leads the team in routes, does not get targeted. They're playing the Titans. The Titans have been getting destroyed all year. Laviska Shenault, I was pumping him up. Best slot matchup you can possibly have. He catches one pass, big pass for 58 yards, but that is it. Listen, if you're in return yard leagues and Agnew's out there, I'm grabbing him. Return yards, absolutely. Let's do it. But on top of that, it's interesting. It makes it very difficult. Thanks, Bars and Tuck, for the question. We appreciate it. But it makes it difficult to trust if Shenault and Marvin Jones can't get it done against the Titans and how much they struggled. When are you going to trust them? So they're on your bench. I think Marvin Jones is even droppable because I think after this week they have their bye and they got Miami this week, which is they got Xavier Howard and Byron Jones. I don't think I'm starting Marvin Jones anyway. So if you need to drop him, I think you can, even though he did lead the team in routes. A guy that I like is Dan Arnold. He actually pops up second on the team in routes in only his second game, 8 targets. So if you're desperate at tight end, Dan Arnold is someone that, until my boy James O'Shaughnessy comes back, could be someone who fills in for you, maybe even next week against the Dolphins. On the Titans side, A.J. Brown, I think he's still a buy low. He led the team in routes and targets. Yes, it was Jacksonville, but it was his first game back from injury, and the same thing happened last year. He missed early on in the season. A.J. Brown was a disaster. From week 5 on, he took off. So I think if you could get A.J. Brown and buy him, I would still, because things will get better, too, with Julio returning at some point.
Moving on to the Patriots and Texans. Patriots squeak one out here against Houston, 25-22. Davis Mills, my man, starting to wake up. Love to see it. 312 yards, 3 touchdowns. Interesting to see what they'll do here with Tyrod Taylor getting healthy, but this could be the 3rd year in a row Tyrod Taylor is supplanted by the rookie. We'll see what happens. Damian Harris banged up in this game. We'll see what happens with him long-term. 14 carries, 58 yards, and a touchdown. I mentioned Ramondre Stevenson as a pickup on the waivers. I still feel you should target him. Chris Moore is the guy here with 5 catches, 109 yards, and a touchdown. We knew Bill Belichick was going to eliminate Brandon Cooks because he's the only noteworthy option on the offense there. He was obsolete, but Chris Moore, who you may never hear of ever again, was 5 for 109 and a touchdown. Anything to take away from this one?
Well, I think Damian Harris injury is key. Ramondre Stevenson, great call there. He didn't look great, though, 2.1 yards per carry, but he's going to get the touches if Harris is out. So we'll see. Hunter Henry, here's the interesting wrinkle here. Hunter Henry became the solo artist at tight end. What I mean by that, 20 routes to 6 for Jonnu, 8 targets on the week. Now that's something we can work with. I think if Hunter Henry is going to start getting more work closer to the lead of receivers and he's going to be the true tight end 1, he can build off this performance. So maybe he is starting to separate himself from Jonnu as they move to more 3 receiver sets. On the Texans side, the only real takeaway really for me is David Johnson actually ran routes this week. Believe it or not, he ran weeks 1 through 4. He ran a route on less than 50% of Brandon Cooks's routes. Last week, 22 routes to 30 for Cooks. So maybe he's starting to become more of a cemented passing game back, getting more work there. I don't know, but something worth noting.
Okay, moving on here to the Browns and the Chargers. This was a thrilling game. I think the Sunday night and the Monday night game and Thursday night were all phenomenal in prime time. In the main slot, though, this was the best game of the week here. The Chargers and the Browns back and forth all game long. 47-42 for the Chargers. Everybody going off in this one. Justin Herbert, 398 and 4 touchdowns. Ran one in as well. Mike Williams, 165 and 2. Eckler has 3 touchdowns. Keenan Allen had a good day. Nick Chubb, 161 total yards. Kareem Hunt gets in. Baker Mayfield did well. David Njoku had a career day as well. Fantasy points all over the board, Bob. Can we sustain this with 2 of these teams moving forward?
Well, the notable thing is the Browns lost 3 starters in the secondary in this game. So it definitely showed, because you look at those Mike Williams touchdowns, he was just wide open.
Yeah.
So it tells, I mean, touche world. I wrote an article about why Mike Williams is a tough out wide matchup. And then sure enough, every Browns cornerback gets hurt. And they're just like, hey, Mike, why don't you just screw over that fantasy football X factor and catch this touchdown? It's cool. But yeah, listen, it's good news for Herbert. Yeah, I know the injuries happen, but hey, listen, he performs when he needs to. It was good to see Baker and them compete at a high level and keep in a high-scoring game, but it's the ground game that builds them. I mean, when you got Chubb and Hunt just dominating, I mean, Hunt does it. He just finds the end zone constantly. I know this is not going to be a popular opinion, but I'm always going to tell you to sell high on Kareem Hunt, because he's scoring touchdowns at an insane, unsustainable rate. And if you can get a comparable RB1 for him, maybe if you package Hunt and another player and get a comparable RB1 like a Zeke Elliott or someone like that, I think you should consider doing it. Just saying. On the Chargers side, really what it comes down to is Mike Williams is arrived. I mean, it's a thing. It's him and Keenan Allen, and Jared Cook is the next guy on the list for routes, and then Austin Eckler finally just putting it all together, receiving work. I mean, if you can get all, I think Austin Eckler is probably a top 5 back rest of the season. Would you agree?
Yes, I would.
All right.
Baker Mayfield, 3 career losses when scoring 42 or more points. That's the most in the NFL, man. That just goes to show you the defensive lap there in Cleveland over the last couple of years. Going to your Giants and the Cowboys, 44-20. Unfortunately, the Giants get a shellacking here. Daniel Jones goes out with a concussion. They lose Saquon Barkley to just another fluke, wrong place, wrong time, blown up ankle. I sprained my ankle the same way, and it was trouble. A couple years ago, I had a big ball on the side of mine that you saw there as well. So tough day for the Giants there, but we do see Kadarius Toney go off for 10 for 189. Saquon, DJ, and Golladay all hurt, though, in this one. On the other side for the Cowboys, 302 and 3 for Dak. Zeke, 110 and 2. 1 receiving there for Zeke Elliott. CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper both score as well. Big fireworks for the Giants. Big fireworks for the Cowboys. Giants in trouble.
Yeah, Barkley, Kenny Golladay, Daniel Jones, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton. I mean, I think we gravitate towards each other, Sky, because you're the West Coast team that gets hurt all the time. I'm the East Coast team that gets hurt all the time. And we're just like, let's just team up. Is that? Let's team up and just be together in our pain. And that's why we get along so well. I mean, Barkley's a fluke, but I think Devontae Booker is someone that you should definitely target. I'm sure you brought him up earlier today, because they use him as a workhorse as well. So that's good to see from a backup running back, because he performed very well. If it's Glennon, I mean, Glennon showed a little bit last year to put up some points. But I think the biggest takeaway for me is Kadarius Toney's the real deal. I mean, this kid looks so good running routes. The other thing I like about Toney is that he's doing on the outside and he's doing it on the inside. So if Shepard comes back and kicks him out wide, he's shown that he can win on the outside, which is just, I think the problem for me, though, is he going to take Slayton's spot? Are they going to give Slayton the veteran treatment? Here's the veteran bump, and he's just still going to be 4th. But Toney is just legit. So pick him up, stash him. I think that's legit. Dalton Schultz. I brought it up on my Player Trends episode on Saturday. It's here. It's arrived. 27 routes to 8 for Jarwin. It's not a 50-50 split. They were 3 routes apart, weeks 1 through 4. And now it's just different. I've been trying to get Schultz in all my leagues, but there is a but. When Michael Gallup returns, does that bump him down to 4th in the pecking order? So it could be something where you, in the interim, if you need a quick tight end fix, you get him, and then you sell him when Gallup comes back, just in case he falls to 4th.
Michael Gallup's a great name to mention. I did not mention him yesterday in the waiver wire pickup, and all those guys off the IR that I mentioned earlier. Jerry Jeudy, Jeff Wilson, maybe Gronk if he was dropped, Jarvis Landry, guys like that. But definitely take a look for Michael Gallup too. That's a great call. We do have a quick question here from Mr. Jones. Odell Beckham obviously played for the Giants, now with the Browns. We just covered both those teams. Quickly, Bob, should I drop Odell Beckham Jr.?
Depends on for who, but honestly, if you drafted Odell, you have to be patient. The guy's coming off a serious injury. We knew, I mean, Pro Football Doc has been talking about this for a couple of weeks now, saying Odell's not 100%. And Odell would not probably be playing if Jarvis Landry didn't get hurt. So, and the other thing is, it's not Odell. I honestly implore everybody to go look at the highlights. Odell's wide open, and Baker's just throwing it 50 feet over his head. It's not an Odell problem. I'm not even joking. There's been multiple plays where the ball's just whoop, and he's just wide open. So it has nothing to do with Odell. There's just something off about Baker and Odell specifically.
Yeah, I agree.
So don't drop him.
Do not drop him. Final game here, Bob. We're going to get out of here. We'll go to my Niners and take care of my loss this time. We talked about your Giants getting bamboozled. At least the Niners made it close, and they contained Kyler Murray. 17-10, the Cardinals get the win over the 49ers here. DeAndre Hopkins not having the huge catching or yardage totals, but he does score this week, 6 for 87 and a touchdown. Trey Lance, 89 yards on the ground, but he does come up gimpy. They have a bye week this week as well. The 49ers hopefully gets healthy, but it's probably Jimmy Garoppolo coming out of it. Kyler Murray, 239 yards and a touchdown, so slow day in his standards. And James Conner scores once again, 5 touchdowns in 3 games here for James Conner. How do we feel about the Niners and Cardinals?
Well, I want you to answer the question because I feel crazy, but I want all the Elijah Mitchell shares I can get.
Sure.
I think last week kind of showed the 9-to-1 ratio, but it just kind of got buried because the offense didn't look too great. But his usage, I'm like, if Jimmy G comes back and they go back to what they were doing, so and plus the buy, I think you can get him real cheap. What's your thoughts on Elijah Mitchell?
I totally agree. Until Jeff Wilson comes back, Mitchell is the one that I want.
Okay. And then on that, too, is Trey Lance getting hurt? Is it going to be Jimmy G like you just brought up earlier? Is that going to be their cop-out to go back to Jimmy G? I'm not really sure. But I think the biggest takeaway for me is that it's Elijah Mitchell's backfield going forward until Jeff Wilson comes back. On the Cardinals side, Max Williams going down is a bigger ripple effect for a guy like Rondell Moore. Maybe you'll see more 4 wide receiver sets, and plus he ran more routes than Christian Kirk. I think you could, if he got dropped because he didn't have a lot of usage, I think you scoop him back up. And I think he might be a trade target because if Max Williams, the next guy is Daniels or something, and he's not a pass catching tight end. So it could be 4 wide, and that could be big news for Rondell Moore being on the field more.
Got it. And of course, George Kittle out on the IR as well. So you didn't have him this week. Hopefully he gets healthy moving forward. I will say Brandon Ayuk was at least targeted significantly in this game. I think that is coming if Trey Lance can continue to take over, but probably Jimmy Garoppolo moving forward. All right, Bob, that wraps up the week 5 recaps and looking forward to week 6. We did have one more question here. Max Beckwith tuning in on YouTube. Shouts out to Max. Thanks for tuning in. Should I drop CEH? And the caveat is in a 6-team league. 6-team league, Bob. These rosters are massive in this league. Should he drop CEH?
Yeah, I would need to see for who, but it's close. I mean, the problem with CEH is that he did look the part, though, the last 2 weeks. And then they had a tough game against the Bills and he got hurt. It's not an extended injury either. It wasn't a big injury. He'll only be out a couple weeks. But what if they trade for Marlon Mack? And Marlon Mack's involved now, and they have Daryl Williams circling in. So I think I'm not dropping him just yet because the Bills matchup was a really tough one. Plus, he got hurt in it, and the 2 weeks prior, he was great. So, no, I'm not dropping him unless that option's really good, but I doubt you're going to find a guy better than CEH.
I agree there. And back to the Cardinals' first 5-0 start since 1974 when they were, of course, the St. Louis Cardinals. Bobo crushed it out, man. Week 5 in the books. Week 6 coming up next. We got a whole slate of shows left for you. We got Buck coming up next week. He's going to take a week off here. We got Jordan coming out. Of course, Chris Benavides joining us later this week, and Buck and I will be back with you as well. Before we get out of here, we want to give another shout out to one of our newest sponsors. Once again, Carafactor, skincare for hair. Make sure you check it out. Listen to the ad once again, and you can get some percentage off there to help out with your hair follicle needs. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday evening. And if you're listening to this back on Wednesday, then enjoy hump day and get over the rest of that week. Bob, any last thoughts on week 5?
No, I'm ready for week 6, and I'm looking forward to a fresh start.
Best of luck on your waivers, my man. We'll talk to you next time. Make sure to give a like and subscribe and a follow to Fantasy Focused and TCK anywhere on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and of course on the Believe Podcast Networks, anywhere you listen to your podcast. Leave a 5-star rate and review. All episodes are brought to you by the Believe Podcast Network and Bet Online, betonline.ag. We'll catch you next time. Have a great rest of your week and best of luck on your waivers. For my man, Bobby Lamarco, I'm Sky Guasco, and we are out of here.